This episode brought to you by Ice Barrel. Dave at Power Monkey Camp, I walk outside to see a line of these barrels across the wall, and you guys in there freezing cold. What was going on?
Oh man, bringing Ice Barrel on as a sponsor for this camp was something I've been looking forward to for a while. We used to use cold therapy as part of our recovery process when we were living at the Olympic Training Center for years. It was something that I think we've always been missing from camp, and to be able to have this therapy so readily accessible for the campers and for the staff changed the game. It's something that I think we'll be having with the team moving forward. Did you give it a chance to try it out?
Absolutely. Jumping in there, it brought back some very fond memories of sitting in a cold bath with that I cooled down with just ice. I used to go get ice at the store and throw it in the tub and sit there for a while. But this ice barrel made a huge difference. Just a place that's completely designated for that. Single use, much better than kind of the tub that we had there at Power Monkey Camp before, where there is a bunch of us sitting in the same tub. So I really enjoy the aspect of being able to be in there by yourself. It's perfectly fitted for someone of average to big size to fit in there comfortably and get the job done.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are new to Ice Barrel, it's a cold therapy training tool that offers an easy way to bring ice baths to your routine. With a lightweight design and functional features, Ice Barrel is portable, durable, compact, and looks great. It's something I highly recommend. You can use the code POWERMONKEY, all caps, for $75 off. You can go to icebarrel.com and check out more information. Highly recommended if you're looking to incorporate some cold therapy into your training. Check out icebarrel.com. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn, and on today's episode, we have a roundtable discussion. It's going to be, me and Chad, but along with us, we have some regular guests, Chris Hinshaw and Jason Leiden. The four of us are all Power Monkey coaches. We all know each other well. We've been working together for close to a decade, and we started to take some Instagram questions, so we wanted to hear from you, our listeners, as to what types of questions you wanted answered, and we started to tackle these one by one. Unfortunately, we didn't get to a ton of them because conversation always takes a tangent in different directions whenever we are talking to each other, but I think there's some really great points, some really relevant discussions going on, and hopefully this will be the start of many more of these roundtables in the future. Enjoy. All right, we got a special podcast today. We're so lucky to have so many amazing people on with us. We have, of course, Mr. Chad Vaughn, and then along with Chad, we got Chris Hinshaw and Jason Leiden. How are you guys doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Yeah.
Good. This is like hanging out at Power Monkey Camp. It's something I wish we could do more often. Unfortunately, we're all over the world, or all over the country. We got Connecticut, we got Nashville area, or you're in Cookeville, right, Chris? And then we got Austin, Texas, and Portland, Oregon. We're way too far away from each other, but hopefully we can create a little bit of that camp love that we all look forward to in the fall and spring.
We need a Power Monkey compound.
Do you know how many times we talked about this? I think Jordan's on the podcast too, just listening, and I think he heard that and he unmuted himself so that he could chime in and say, it's something I talk about all the time. Jordan, go ahead, say it. I know you're waiting to.
George's
I had a little bit of like a seizure when I heard that. Like I almost fell off my stool. Oh, man, Jay, I love it.
We really should just develop a compound, and that's it.
I know.
A little winery and like coffee,
right?
Coffee thought in the middle, winery on the outsides of it.
I mean, it's something that has actually been in development behind the scenes. We're not quite there to be able to announce it yet, but yeah, we've been talking about doing something like that, buying a little plot of land and having a place where I could go hang out whenever we want to. You guys would all in?
I'm in.
Yeah. I mean, we're basically a cult anyway already, right?
Yeah. I mean, you call it whatever you want. I don't care.
I love it.
We just got to figure out where, because everybody's trying to like push their own location. Jordan's like, you got to do it in New Hampshire.
I'm not pushing Connecticut on anybody. Anywhere but Connecticut. I'm down.
It's got to be someplace warm.
Yeah. Warm. You got some land. You got to have a little bit of water. You got to have a little lake or something. So there are some prerequisites. So we'll see what we can find. But just listeners out there, if you have any locations that you think that might be worth making a Power Monkey compound, send them over.
Wow. Good community outreach. I like that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good cause.
I agree. So we got some questions. We got some questions from the Instagram audience that we wanted to kind of share and see if we can slowly spread some knowledge around these. First one is, who do each of you look up to when you're trying to grow or improve as a coach? Is there some resource, some, I don't know, an entity, a specific mentor, somebody that you guys have each looked up to in terms of not only where you are right now as a coach, but also as you look to continue to grow? Jay, I'll start with you. You look like you're thinking hard on this one.
I am. That's a great question. I always looked at mentors as people to fill in voids that I was missing. So every single year from the beginning, I've kind of looked for where I feel my voids are and who I can mentor for that. And when I first came into strength and conditioning, or the space of CrossFit, the first person to really fill that void for me was James Fitzgerald from an individual design and this application of science for it. And every year I've kind of have new voids to fill. So when I realized I needed a lot more work with understanding like Olympic lifting and positions, I worked with Chad for like 2 years. And when I wanted to really dive into gymnastics and positions and how to properly build that, I worked with Dave and Colin for an exceptionally long time. And when I wanted to study more into how do I get people to build endurance, I continually reach out to Chris. And not to kind of blow up the Power Monkey coaching staff, but a lot of my mentors are also the people on Power Monkey. And when I feel there's things like with nutrition that I'm kind of lacking, I'll reach out to Mike or Dr. Jamie, depending on which route I want to go. So I've always had this systematic approach every single year where I'll sit down, I'll be like, what voids am I missing in my knowledge, or what do I want to put like more attention on, whether it's breathing protocols and mindset, application of training long and high intense work, whatever it might be. I think, well, who do I feel I can communicate well with, and I think is the best in there, and then I'll reach out to them and I'll really dive down that path until I feel I have a really, really good, not just understanding of it, but also understanding how to apply it to where I am with my athletes. So that's kind of the route I've taken literally for like the past 15 years. You know, I'll just dive into 1 or 2 people for a year or two or longer, and then I'll kind of circle back, because we all know that you can't gain all that information that fast. So I'll often circle back at various times as I continually grow.
Sure. And I mean, I'm not, this question was sent to us, so it wasn't specifically meant to highlight Power Monkey coaches. But I mean, I would say the same thing. Like if I was answering this question, I would say that I learned from the people that we surround ourselves with at camp. You know, those are the people that I look to as the absolute best resources in those specific areas. But Chris, what about you? Who have you kind of looked to as a mentor and learning in this space?
So I come from a swimming background, and one of the things that's really appealed to me in the swimming world is what Bob Bowman has done with Michael Phelps. I mean, here Phelps has I think it's 23 gold medals, and I don't know how many world championship wins that he's had. But what's impressive to me is that in some way, somehow, he has been able to keep Michael Phelps as an athlete, right? That's one thing, retention. Over the years, in some way, somehow, he has continuously provided value that Michael Phelps saw as value, but it also translated into gold medals. So he was delivering value. And that is not the easiest thing to do for that many years. And so, yeah, I do a lot of digging into him, and it's not just luck. He's very talented to be able to stay relevant for essentially, 16 to 20 years on a global level.
Right. And someone like Bowman too, it's not like you can't look at him and just say, well, you were given the most gifted athlete in the world, and you just basically cultivated him to do something he was probably destined to do anyway, because he's been able to do this with other athletes. He's been able to show the same success with, and that, I think that's pretty critical. We see that in gymnastics world too, where an athlete moves to a gym who has all the physical tools in the world, and then that coach becomes, known as the person that brought them to the elite level, whereas, that person probably could have done the same thing in a lot of other areas because of how physically talented they were. But Bowman's kind of unique in the sense that he's able to do it time and time again.
Right. Time and time again in a not just one sport, right? I mean, he's doing it in multiple movements within the sport of swimming. And then to stay, like I said, to stay relevant for that amount of time and to inspire an athlete to stay on that world stage for that amount of time. There's so many challenges and you have to respect that. And it's a puzzle that I haven't figured out, but I'd like to.
Love that. What about you, Chad?
Well, I mean, yeah, the easy answer, but the real and true answer has a lot to do with Power Monkey. I mean, I'm just going to reiterate that because it's not something that I'm not going to say just because we're on the Power Monkey podcast. I mean, it's the absolute truth, but it's because it's who all 5 of us have access to. Through the years, I've learned so much from all of you guys here and the rest of the Power Monkey coaching staff, not just from the disciplines that you all teach and that they teach, but just from being a coach in general, a teacher, how you speak, being a better human. I've learned from all you guys. So it's something that I have to state in answering these questions, but without digging too much into that, the answer outside of that are the coaches that I came across through my career, namely Richard Fleming, who's been a part of my journey since the beginning, and Ursula Garza Papandrea, who is Jody's coach and has been her coach from the very beginning, but also had a big hand in helping me along the way. And, as I've become a teacher and a coach, I'm looking back and remembering some of the things, or a lot of the things that they said to me, a lot of the things that they did with me, and understanding now more where they were coming from and how powerful and beneficial those words and those drills and those things that they implemented with me along the way were. Some other ones that have been a big influence on me when I first got into the CrossFit community, and I've talked about this on this podcast before, but I was not a fan of Kelly Starrett in the beginning. It was mostly from my own hangups, my own ego. But the more I taught and the more people that I coached, the more athletes that I coached, the more I realized how on point Kelly Starrett was. And I started taking in everything that he said. And we just had an interview with him yesterday, Dave, and still to this day, I'm learning so much from that guy. He's so knowledgeable, so smart. And I really respect what he does. And one other one is Dr. Aaron Horschig with Squat University. I work a lot with him very closely, almost on a daily basis, and always learning something from him. Again, not just from the perspective of the field that he's in, physical therapy, same thing with Kelly, but as a coach, as a teacher, as a human, and I think that all of those aspects are important, not just what the coach is, the specific discipline the coach is teaching, but how are they delivering the message? How are they speaking? How are they getting their points across?
Yeah, I love that. All those people have actually, impacted in the way that we do things as well, whether it's Kelly, Aaron, obviously has such a huge influence social media wise in terms of how PT is being viewed right now. And obviously you working with him so closely now, I can see just the way that you coach has changed after working with Aaron for so long. So it's cool to see how it actually reflects in the way that you've grown as a coach. I just want to mention something from my own end as a coach too. And I've thought about this for a while, and I don't think I've ever verbalized it, but every coach that I've had over the years has had something critical to me growing as an athlete and as a coach. My coach, who was my club coach growing up in New Jersey, Jim Surgeon, Matt Stevenson, the guys that coach at Surgeons, they taught me what it meant to be part of a team. They taught me what it meant to be in an individual sport, but still put the team first. And we had a really great boys program growing up in New Jersey, and that team meant everything. We always wanted to perform well, not so that we could end up on the medal stand, but how does our individual contribution make the team succeed? And that to me played such a critical role in wanting to get into a collegiate team, wanting to compete for Team USA, and now be a part of a team with Power Monkey. And I love that. That was something I learned at a really young age, and I always kind of kept that at the core of who I was as an athlete. And I think sometimes people think of gymnastics as an individual sport, but I've always thought of it as a team sport. And it was because of what I learned when I was a kid. From there, moving to Stanford, My Stanford coach, Sadao Hamada, one of the legends within the gymnastics world, he taught me technique. He taught me to break things down and refine things that I thought I was good at and was completely shit. I injured myself on my first day at Stanford and blew my knee out, and I used that time to refine my positions, refine how I approach movement. And without his understanding of technique, I would have not been the gymnast that I was later on the road. My last coach at Stanford, Tom Gleamy, who's the Olympic coach this year and still the head coach at Stanford, he taught me work ethic. He taught me how to put the numbers in. His whole thing was, you pound this movement into your body so you understand how so your body naturally takes over and you don't even have to think when you go out there. I would not have understood work ethic without Tom. And then I moved to the Olympic Training Center, and my final coach, Vitaly Marinic, world champion, one of the top gymnasts ever, taught me the mental side. So you can have all the physical tools in the world, you can have all the technique in the world, and you can go out there and shit all over yourself if you don't know how to get the mind to be part of your training. And he was able to say, okay, you're a little older in your training right now. You don't need to be spending all this time on the equipment anymore. Let's make every turn count. We want quality within your turns. How do we start to get the mental side? I wish I would have learned this younger, but all of these components were something that I took away from my coaches that now I implement in the way that I teach. It was something I always tried to look at my coaches and say, what is the one thing that I'm really getting out of this coach? And each of them really taught me something to become a better athlete. And now I apply that to the way that I coach.
Dave, if you don't mind, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead, Jason. Yeah.
The sequence you went through was, you know what it brought me right back to? It brought me back to The Last Dance and hearing Jordan talk towards the end, right? How athletes, you just outlined your coaches, and we go through these stages, and it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or coach, you all go through these stages where you're like just developing the skill set and getting the repetitions and seeing how it hones into you and your niche where you are. And then the final stage is that craftsman, right? That mindset. You just talked about it. Jordan talks about it. It's like, how can I kind of like be smarter with my time and not put in the wear and tear? And that was great. Yeah, I loved hearing that.
It's a sculpture. I look at gymnastics as a sculpture where, like, initially you have a huge block of marble and you need to take these huge chunks out of the marble first, right? You got to do the big chunks, and then slowly you start to use the chisel and make some refinements, and then you start getting the polish out and you're doing all the small detail work, and over time you start to actually create this beautiful thing that you've intended. But if you don't do the early work and do the big chunks first, you're never going to be able to get to the point where you can refine. So
Dave,
my sport is
I'm not sure if you stole the sculpture concept from me or I stole it from you, but I talk about the squat, the bottom position of your squat is a sculpture, and key positions and the lifts is a sculpture all the time. So
just talking to each other way too much.
Maybe I did pick that up from you. I'm not sure. I'm not going to give you credit for it beyond this, but maybe I did. Well, one thing I want to wrap this up with is that all that stuff that we just talked about in the coaches that influence, that only happened because we were open to it. You know, like I said in the beginning, I was not open to Kelly Starrett, but I'm glad that I pushed my ego to the side and I opened myself up to the information that he's providing. I'm a better teacher. I'm a better coach because of that. So, you know, to the coaches out there listening, you got to be open to these things because it's easy. I've been there as a coach where, you know, even for a second or, you know, however long it is, you think you know everything, you're going to get, dumped on pretty quickly. You're going to get an ego check really, really quickly. I know at this point, even though I am an expert in weightlifting, the more I learn about weightlifting, the more I realize I have to learn. And I think that's true of any successful person in any field. When you get to that point, that's when you know you're getting somewhere. Even though you do have so much to learn still, that's when you know you're really getting somewhere.
Absolutely. So, Chris, you say something?
Well, I just wanted to ask Chad. I mean, Chad, do you think that you know, considering your background as an athlete in weightlifting has made you a better coach in weightlifting? Or do you think that's not a necessity?
Yeah, we were just talking about this a little bit with Kelly yesterday as well. It's one of those things where it has absolutely helped me as a coach and a teacher. Without that, do I think I had an affinity to teach and coach? Yeah, probably so. But I think when you combine those two things, someone that has not only competed at a high level, but done all the things that require want to compete at a high level, put the time in the gym, rep after rep after rep, and, you know, gaining that understanding and that knowledge, but then combining that with the ability to teach and coach, it makes the ingredients for a very special coach, a very special teacher. And I think me being an elite athlete does give me a very huge distinct advantage.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I sometimes think about workouts that I write, and the reason why I think that there's value in them is because I look at it, could I do it? Would I want to do it? And I think that if you're not an athlete where you haven't done those things, I'm not sure how you can manipulate the variables tightly to maximize an adaptation. I mean, clearly it can be done, but
yeah,
I'm just not sure how that would be done if you're not capable, or you haven't been capable of doing something like that. It gives you a different perspective.
yeah, I think that's a really good point, Chris.
Yeah.
What you probably end up doing is relying more on just the data that you collect from all of the people that you work with to help figure those things out that come innately as an athlete that you just figure out because you've gone through it yourself.
Yeah, which is very valuable, and what we should continue doing ourselves as well. But it's just, you know, that initial advantage that I do believe elite athletes, or at least athletes that have trained for 20 or 30 years, you know, and to be the best that they can be, there's just something extra that you're going to have there.
Well, one time Dave mentioned to me, though, that he sees, like, in a muscle up, a ring muscle up, it was like 16 different sections, or I don't know how many, Dave, I'm butchering probably what you said, but it was some huge number of different segments within the muscle up. And he knows, based upon finishing position, where the individual started to deviate. And obviously, as an athlete, you're not seeing those things. I mean, a coach through repetition sees them over and over and over again. But I just wonder, like, for example, when I look at a muscle up, I close my eyes afterwards and I see just dark space. But if you ran past me, it would be burning in my, you know, my brain. And I don't know where, at some point in time, did that occur when I was an athlete, or did I have to take a step back and that occurred during coaching? And that I don't know, but I do know through thousands of repetition, you know, I can see someone's movement afterwards, but in weightlifting, I don't see anything. And in gymnastics, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I think that's like,
go ahead, Jay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think it's just so much of when we get put in the trenches of breaking the movements down and understanding from the smallest details. So when you were talking, Chris, it actually brought me back to like shooting a jump shot. Because I feel like that's something I've done, you know, like you running, or Chad snatching, or Dave doing a muscle up or handstand hold. There's one summer where I had to take something like 3,000 shots before I could play a game. You know, it's like breaking everything down from the way my toe is positioned. So when I watch people play basketball, I can just, even just the sound of how they step in, I can almost tell if their form's off, they're gonna miss it, or if they're legit like good at what they're doing, which I'm sure is like with Chris, with you running, and Chad with the barbell, and Dave with gymnastics. Like, we've broken that one movement down so finitely to the smallest detail that, like you said, we can see it in all these different parts, and then be able to express it in the simplest manner in a way that someone can understand who hasn't done it a lot, right? And then as a person gets more detailed, we can expand upon it more. But that's like the magic of coaching, you know. And my first experience with that, I don't know if I ever shared this with you guys, is when I met Dean Smith. You guys know who Dean Smith is?
Sure.
Chris, you familiar with Dean Smith?
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the best basketball coaches of all time, UNC, gym named after him. I met him in freshman
college.
What's that?
Jordan's
yeah.
College,
yeah. Did I ever tell you this story?
No.
So my freshman year of college, Dean Smith was up at Springfield for the Basketball Hall of Fame. James Worthy was being inducted. So they had Larry Bird, James Worthy, Nate Tiny Archibald, all these guys are there at the college. I'm shooting free throws, and Dean Smith comes walking in, and he's like standing behind me, right? And I'm like pissing myself. I'm like, God, this is Dean Smith. So now I'm just missing every shot. Clank, 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 right? I'm like, this is like
now we know how Jay performs when the pressure's on.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm gonna go coward. So Dean Smith
Jocelyn
goes,
told me that already.
All right. Where are we going with this one?
Sorry, bro. It's just like
So,
I just heard.
so Dean comes walking over to me. He looks at me because he first he notices I'm nervous as all hell. He goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Dean Smith." Puts out his hand to shake my hand. Like right there, right? That simple gesture of just announcing himself, like I didn't know who he was. He's just some normal dude. Kind of like put me at ease right away. That was one of my first experiences with the connection of being a coach, of understanding like the emotional connection to athletes. Like this guy just walked up and the first thing he did was just to relax me. And then he was like, then he said the simplest cue, something I've heard 1,000 times. He goes, just hold your follow through a little bit longer, relax. Like the simplest thing that he thought he could say to get me to get to respond. And I remember to this day, and I made it. He smiled. He said, "Nice to meet you," and he walked away. And that was it. I'm like, man, like that's mastery right there. You know, when I look back at it, I'm like, that's a master coach at his craft. Understanding the human connection, understanding the simplest thing he could say to get me to be effective when I'm doing, not breaking it down to 800 different things. What's one thing he could say for a right response? Like that was it right there.
But so, I'm sorry, go ahead. I could rabbit hole this, but I
know it's funny. Like we've gotten to one question so far, which I think is fine. But it's okay because I think we're going in a good direction here. My question is in regards to exactly what you're talking about, Jay, with Dean Smith. Being a coach, you were an athlete at the time. I don't think you really had any intention or thought about being a coach. You were just recognizing him as being one of the best there was. My question is, all of us were former athletes before we transitioned into teaching. Did you intend or did you think that you would be a good coach or teacher when you were done with your sport? Because I actively sought to not teach.
Yeah.
I did not want to be a coach. I wanted to get as far away from the sport as I possibly could when I was done with gymnastics, and it sucked me back in. It happened more me pushing and screaming than it did with me like trying to actively pursue it. I'm curious whether or not you guys saw yourselves as a coach while you were athletes.
So I had a sponsorship with Apple Computer back in the day, and that sponsorship was, it required me to go to their headquarters and give health and fitness clinics. And that was the quid pro quo. And so I've always been involved in teaching health and fitness, but I never planned on it being a full-time job ever, never, because there just wasn't way back then the opportunity to do a lot. Where were you going to find that opportunity? And, you know, I think that also back when, you know, the 80s and early 90s, when, you know, I got out of college, there was an expectation. You're going to get a full-time job. You're going to stay in that job until you retire. You're going to have kids, mortgage, debt. There's your cycle. And that was the cycle that I got into until I took a step back and I'm like, wait a minute, there's got to be something else. And there was, and that's where the passion was, you know, for me. Can you make money and not be happy? Absolutely. And that's where I was for a long amount of time. Can you make a lot less money and be happy? Of course. And that's what coaching is.
Pretty far removed from being an athlete too, before you actually got into the coaching world, which is actually pretty unique. You know, you stepped away from the sport and then found it later down the road after having gone to the corporate world.
Yeah, because there was just no opportunity. There just wasn't an opportunity I mean, that's where I sit back and I think about strength and conditioning coaches and where they have to get work. It's a tough space and it's highly competitive. And so, yeah, it's really cool that we have all had an opportunity to create something unique.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Chad?
No, my story is basically the same as yours. I mean, just 'cause I'm always trying to be like you anyway, Dave, but it's true. It's exactly like yours. I mean, I had no intentions of being a coach. I had, you know, I remember towards the end of my career, just my mom or some random person that I would meet would say, why don't you be a trainer or a coach of some sort? And I wanted absolutely no part of it. And it wasn't until I walked into a CrossFit gym for the first time where, you know, I perked up a little bit and I said, hey, wait a minute, I like this community, fell in love immediately. And I saw immediately that there was a need for knowledge with the barbell and an opportunity. And because of that opportunity, it led me into doing this. And again, it took me a couple years to still really want to do it. and to still really seek out more opportunity and to be a teacher and coach. And I'm still not sure that I'm completely there, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that I'm doing what I'm completely supposed to be doing. I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up, but if this is it, I'm absolutely happy with it. I'm loving every minute of it.
Have you peaked as an athlete yet, Chad?
That's a good question, Chris. You know what? I'm a young 41 years old. I might be able to step it up, and you never know.
I think that you have
Chad is a sprinter too. Let's not forget about that.
Chad, I'll take it. Let me step in for you. I'll defend you.
I saw Chad. I'm ready.
I saw Chad run, and
no, I'm being serious.
Running where? Wait. Where did you see Chad run?
I saw him run a power monkey, and not just once.
Dave, you don't remember seeing me fly by you during the competition?
That didn't happen.
Chad is the fastest bear crawl in all of Tennessee.
Stop. He was legit. Chad, don't take it from him. I'm telling you, I'll step in for you. Chad was all right, I gotta say.
No, I'm being serious. Chad can fucking sprint. He's a sprinter.
I'm talking about his technique, his form. It was sound. Like there's no complaints. The guy, I could have him demo. Will you demo for me next time at the endurance station?
I'm ready. I'm ready to go on tour with you, Chris.
Yeah.
We are. Well, I think we're at the point now where we're just going to switch all the camp coaches, and we're just going to pull it out of a hat and say, Chris, you're on bar work this week.
Yeah.
Chad, you're teaching jump
go.
rope. There we go.
Awesome.
Chris, I'm running more right now. I'm training to be at least somewhat more conditioned for you, so I can recover a little bit faster, so I can demo again for you.
Yeah, I mean, you did have a lot of drama between your intervals. That's for sure.
Yeah,
on the floor.
Yeah, the recovery's not there. No, it's
lots of complaining.
We should have Chad. You got to do the VO2 max testing on Sunday night.
100%. 100% agree.
See what that is.
Gosh, you know what? I could train for that for the next 3 years. And Chris, I'm just not sure my fast twitch muscles will change enough.
Yeah, don't train for it. Just
train for that.
Yeah.
Right. Jay, what about you?
Yeah, I'm the opposite, man. I always knew I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
For me, it was even
Dean
coming
Smith
up,
moment.
I was always doing basketball lessons, or I had kids in the weight room all the time. And when I went to college, my freshman year of college, I was introduced to this guy called Jill Deering. Jill Deering was a volleyball coach at Springfield College, and he taught a class on coaching. And to me, this guy was like light years ahead of everybody else when I was there, because he was teaching an entire class on just connection to athletes, and talking about how the most powerful people are the coaches, the guides, when they're truly able to guide someone to the fullest potential. And he really resonated with me a lot. And that was my freshman year. And that guy was just an amazing coach. Like, I'd watch him, and it was like Phil Jackson-esque on the volleyball court. The way he would talk differently to every single athlete that he had. And some he'd yell, some he wouldn't, like body language. Like, the guy was a master at just communicating verbally and non-verbally with his athletes. And all his teams were so good. And ever since then, I was like, yeah, like I always had a connection to coaching. And in college, I was going to go to Ohio State for a master's and just do the strength and conditioning field down there at Ohio State and kind of run the gamut. But then I decided to go try to play basketball. So for me, it was something I was always drawn to. I was always connected to. And I knew I had to get into the field one way or the other throughout my time. Yeah.
Love it.
Do you think you would have been a basketball coach, Jay, if CrossFit wouldn't have come along?
I don't know, man. I tried it. I was a basketball coach for a while, and it was hard. Being a basketball coach is difficult for me because of how hard I worked for it, and then seeing people tell me they want to be good but not work hard for it, like, would drive me fucking crazy, And then the recruiting time, I was always drawn to the weight room. Like, even in high school, I was always a gym rat. And that's what I went to school for, college for. So if it wasn't CrossFit, I probably wouldn't have been a basketball coach. I would have still been in the strength and conditioning world in some facet. Because that's what I kept going back to.
Yep.
All right. So next question here, Jay, we're going to stick with you. What do you think? And I think we got to go to you since you incorporate all of what me, Chris, and Chad do. What do you think takes the longest and the shortest to develop between strength, weightlifting, gymnastics, and your engine? What would you say kind of takes the longest and the shortest to develop between those three?
That's a loaded question. And the easy answer is it's person specific. You know, like if someone comes to me with a huge endurance background or a sport that involved lots of endurance background, well, that's not going to be longer for them. They might have to take more time to develop strength and positions. And for some females, the gymnastics might be longer because their upper body pulling strengths can be weaker from what I've seen in this sport, you know, based off how they're built. So if I were to kind of go off some tangents, and I apologize for this, you know, the thing that takes the longest is all dependent on the person, because you look at genetic differences based off limb length and limb size, and then you look at what causes the most fatigue around athletes. And for some people that might be endurance, for others might be strength, for others might be muscular endurance with the upper body. You look at the sex and the sex differences and the neuromuscular efficiency around how they develop best with intensity and volume for strength, for proper gains. But if I were to wash the slate completely clean of that, and I were to say, okay, if I just take a person and they are where they are, what do I think is going to take the longest to develop for them? I'm going to say strength. And but again, I can't say that and be 100% confident, because as we all know, I mean, we're all professional coaches. Like if someone comes to you and they're stronger by nature and more powerful by nature, well, they're going to develop strength quick. And it might take them forever to develop even a kip swing, right? I've seen athletes for 5 years that can't even do a proper swing on the rings to create a muscle up, and people that just take absolutely forever to develop any sort of aerobic threshold basis. So it's probably an extremely difficult question, but
yeah. So individualization plays such a huge component for it. And I'm pretty sure Chris and Chad, you probably agree, right? Whoever you have in has a background that's going to dictate which direction is going to be most advantageous, right? And which one is going to take the longest. Chris, would you agree that that's a fair assessment?
I think it's fair. I think the key is, as a coach, if you have an athlete that walks in the door and they tell you that they want to put 400 pounds over their head and run a 5-minute mile. For me, if I hear that, you know what? I'm going to take them on their word. Until they prove otherwise, we're going to go for it. And I think that's what I didn't have when I was growing up, that coaches would always just put me into, you know, a particular spot and say, no, that's where you're going to be. And that's all you're going to be. And I think that's the mistake, is that athletes surprise coaches all the time. I'm surprised. And so, you know, a good example is taking Cara Webb. You know, when I started working with her, she wanted to go under 6 minutes for a mile. And Cara Webb, you know, if you just looked at her, you would say that's not going to even be possible, especially knowing that her prior PR time in a mile was 6:37. And if I had assumed and done what was done to me when I was younger, we wouldn't even have tried. But the fact is that 5 months later, she goes 5:47. So
wow.
That's the key, I think, is that an athlete like that, we wouldn't think that was even possible. And so my attitude always is, I'm never going to do what coaches did to me. I'm going to deliver exactly what you want until you prove to me it can't. Mm-hmm. And that's really an important thing. And so whether it's strength or their VO2 max, their aerobic threshold, you know, lactate threshold, I'm going for it just like they are until we can't make any more progress.
Yep.
Because that's where there's an anomaly. Then that's what's CrossFit has shown. And I don't know about you, Jay, but I see people every now and then that shouldn't be able to do these things, but that's why they win. You know, I mean, Rich Froning before the games, 5:10 mile, and what he could put 400 pounds over his head. There are anomalies. Jason Khalipa, you could pull a 6:10 on a 2K row and run a 5:20 mile, weighs 222 pounds.
Yeah, crazy.
Right. But that's where it on paper shouldn't be able to be done, but it is being done.
2022 is right around the corner, and I can't tell you how excited I am and all of us at Power Monkey are about a new course offering. For the first time, we're expanding beyond just weightlifting and gymnastics. The Kettlebell RX crew is joining the Power Monkey team, and we are now offering Power Monkey Kettlebell courses in conjunction with gymnastics and weightlifting. Now, there will be standalone kettlebell courses, but one of the cool things that we'd love to do is combo these things up together. So there will be combo courses with weightlifting, with gymnastics, and some other specialties that we have not announced yet. They're going to be starting in 2022. If you go to our website now, powermonkeyfitness.com, you'll be able to see a list of the courses that we already have lined up. Our SME is Jeff Martone, the man, the myth, the legend himself, along with lead coaches Zach Filer and Adrianna Cara. They are some of the best instructors in the kettlebell space in the entire world. We are so lucky to add them to our Power Monkey team to be able to bring more fitness education to more and more people around the world. We are incredibly excited. We can't wait for you to be able to jump on board with a new course starting in 2022. Check out powermonkeyfitness.com for more information about our kettlebell offerings. So
I love that Chris is always trying to get people to put 400 pounds over their head, and I appreciate your confidence at camp there, Chris.
He actually a 400-pound thruster at camp.
Yeah, where Chris claims that I can do a 400-pound thruster, so I'm
just
going to trust.
One time,
I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna claim that as my thruster PR right there.
I think you can claim that 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If Chris Hinshaw said it, I can claim it.
You have not denied it, Chad. You have not denied it. You just have.
I'm not gonna deny it. I don't have to deny it because Chris said it to be true. So
you know what I heard. It's what I heard. One time only though. Not your. That's not your 2 rep. That's your 1 rep.
Well, that's what we're gonna go with. That's what we're going to go with.
And I think I said your 20 rep was 225.
20 reps.
That might actually be more realistic, but we don't have to go there.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, that being said, kind of a missing part of this that I wanted to add in, Dave, when you asked the question, what takes the longest to develop? And I'm not sure that this takes the longest to develop specifically with everyone. And again, it's going to be on an individual basis, but I do think the most important part of this is the mental skill part of it, because without the mental skill, then none of these things are going to be developed to the best of the athlete's ability. And I think that that's kind of overlooked and overstepped in a lot of cases. And luckily we have Dawn on board with us now from Driven Mind Training, that we have this capability for the athletes that come to Power Monkey Camp to listen in on that, but also for us, again, that's one of those coaches that we have the opportunity to sit in on and listen to and learn from. But I think mental skill, to me, should be in that category of strength and technique and aerobic capacity and gymnastics.
I couldn't agree more. And it actually brings back a podcast that we had fairly recently with big man Ron Ortiz, and you guys both work with Ron. Jay and Chris work closely.
Oh, he was talking so much shit on you guys.
Please,
but
come on.
He was talking about how
that would never happen. I don't buy that.
Game is just shit. Like, he was talking about how you guys create strategies, you create targets.
That's true.
You go in. All right, this is what we're doing. This workout, Ron, we're going in with this, and as soon as 3, 2, 1 go hits, everything goes out the window. He likes
everything. Bro, you should put a microphone on Chris and I during the games when Ron's competing, because the comments that we have, there was I don't want to go on this path, but there's one time when it was like 3 years ago, and it's a front squat, and I was like 5 pounds, and I was like, yeah. He claps on like 60 pounds.
Oh my
God. I'm like, I don't know. But anyways,
Jay, him getting out of the water today in this year's games, and it's like he is so nervous, and he finishes the swim, touches the boat ramp, and all he has to do is stand up and run to the finish, and he hits the ground, stands up, and there he is. He's retying his swimsuit, he's adjusting his goggles. He's not getting back in the water, but he's adjusting his goggles. Meanwhile, there's 2 swimmers that are like 10 yards behind him. He never once turns around like he's been taught to do. And he's just adjusting his swim cap and getting, all of his situation right. And then the 2 people run past him. He looks to the left, looks to the right, and there they go. And that's classic Ron. So no, there's only so much a coach can do. I wish I could do the swim for him, but I can't.
But it comes back to what Chad was saying about the mental side, like being present and being aware, not just being physically capable. There's something that probably takes a little bit more time than we give it credit for.
Right. 100%. I was with Duke once, his gymnast, and he's like, you got it. You got the plan, Ron? You got the plan? You got the plan? You got it? What's the plan? Ron recites it. Okay, good. You got it? 3, 2, 1, go. Throws the plan out the window.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Dave,
good old Ron.
Dave, to wrap up that question, I think for coaches listening, it's like so important to understand that there's really no set answer to what develops the longest amount of time. Like as coaches, we need to understand who the person is, where they're coming from, where their probably prior experience leads dominance to, what their goals are, like what Chris said, and then formulate the right plan to create a proper response to develop the areas that are lagging, to catch everything up, to make them in the best position. And then mindset. Yeah, I mean, mindset's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So staying with you, Jay, for a second, what are your thoughts on CrossFitters who are constantly just smashing themselves with volume and metcons like every day? And how do you think that affects their long-term fitness? So we see that quite a bit with, especially people who are maybe a little bit younger, who think that they can recover without any issues. Do you think this is a smart strategy for long-term success as an athlete? What would you recommend in those type of situations? Do you see that ever?
Yeah, I don't. I don't think that's a recommendation for success. And I think Chris can probably piggyback on what I'm going to say a lot better because of his experience with Matt and with Rich in a one-on-one setting. But I think that stemmed with Matt and Rich with the work that they did. And what people understand is the work that Rich was doing, the quote unquote volume, in my opinion, wasn't really volume for him based off what his body was allowed him to do. And also his complete intelligence to monitor his stress and intensity and fatigue and how he went each day. And I think where people come into a problem with that is exactly what you said, Dave, which ties with intensity and volume. And when you do too much intensity too often in your volumes coupled on that, you're prohibiting your body to recover and you're not paying attention to fatigue. And when that happens, your body's gonna go through stages of being fatigued to being over fatigued to overreaching, and then essentially overtraining. And when you start this at a young age, you might feel okay, but internally it's causing a lot of stress and damage to your hormones, to your cortisol, to your testosterone, to your estrogen. And it's almost like a long, slow death, right? For a lot of these people who don't know how to monitor it and progress it really well. Because if you look at people, the elite people in any sport, you even take like boxers, and they might get in like a ton of punches in one training session, but the intensity is super low and they allow themselves to recover in between tough sessions. And that's the most important thing that people can do inside the sport of CrossFit is allow yourself time to recover and pay attention to your fatigue. And if you can do that, more is not always better. More is just more. And they got to be more efficient and effective because it is going to be a slow death or a slow burnout to an overtrained state, to where their body will hit plateaus quicker and not be able to recover. And then they're going to be in the tubes.
Yeah. Chris, what do you say to that? I see you nodding your head quite a bit.
I just agree with him. I think that, let's face it, all of us take cues from other sports, other coaches, other athletes, and we look at them and what are they doing and what are we doing? And we compare the differences. And it's very hard not for me to look at traditional endurance sports and look at the way in which they're breaking down intensity and how much volume of those different intensity levels they're doing. And that's one of the things early on that when I started doing CrossFit, I was always accused of not working hard. And I was very good at knowing where my sustainable paces were. And I know what lactate threshold feels like, what it tastes like. And I'll never forget when I was at Santa Cruz Central and I misjudged my intensity in a particular workout and I blew up and I had my hands on my knees and I was hinging at the waist. And I had 3 coaches like, now that's intensity. And it was like, I knew I was smoked at the moment, but I also knew that I wasn't moving, yet I was being complimented for my level of intensity while I was just standing there. And it just never made any sense to me. And so that's always one of the things that is hard as a coach, is that we look at other areas and it's like, wait, it is really working over there. We're not even applying this right now in our sport. Do I want to take the risk and try something different?
Right.
And that is a very difficult thing for a seasoned coach to try. Like I think back, like when we were talking about coaches, Bill Walsh, San Francisco 49ers. What an incredible thing that he did by changing an entire sport in the way in which he ran an offense based upon his team and the risk he took. If it didn't work, he was going to get fired and probably never get hired again. But that's hard to do as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you say San Francisco 49ers, but we think of Bill Walsh as Stanford legend.
There you go.
He is and will forever be Stanford Cardinal legend. My the quick funny story about him. My coach, who's the head coach at Stanford right now, he was at a party with Bill Walsh one time, and he was wearing like a white leisure suit, and there was like wine, and my coach is very animated and likes to tell stories with his hands, and he hit this tray of red wine, and it just
Ooh.
covered him in his white
Nice.
suit. We're like, forever Bill Walsh hates gymnastics because all right, I want to go to some of these fun questions. I love
Well,
the
hang on, Dave. Let me I wanted to say something about that real
Yeah,
quick
go for
because,
it.
you know, I've done a lot of CrossFit over the more than 10 years now, and being an elite athlete, it's a tough line because you have to push yourself very hard to create stress, to improve, to get better. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not talking about the kind of pain that's injury pain. Like if you're feeling injury pain, that's a pretty clear sign that your body is telling you something that you need to back off and do less or something different. And one of the ways that I think I can wrap this up pretty quickly is by saying that being in the CrossFit community, I know that most CrossFitters, their problem is not going to be pushing hard enough. Their problem is going to be pushing too hard. So I think, and I don't know, tell me if you guys think there's a different percentage here, but I think probably at least 90% of CrossFitters out there, athletes that do CrossFit, can stand to do less. Like, don't worry about doing too little. Like, just take off an extra day a week, or do a workout that is of far less intensity than you think it needs to be. And you're going to benefit so much more from that than doing an extra workout or multiple extra workouts. It's not more that you need. It's more likely in this community, less that you need.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
And I've actually taken my learnings from Chris Henshaw and other endurance people that I dove into as regard to intensity with CrossFit. And honestly, guys, in my opinion, I look at it very similar to a endurance from a blueprint perspective training of the 80-20 rule. And with the sport of CrossFit, and when we get everything in there, I don't have people go more than 2 days a week of intensity and in the beginning part of the year. You know, I just don't.
You saying a competitive CrossFitter or even your general members?
Even my games athletes, when they come off the games, there'll be maybe 1 day a week of true intensity, right? And as we get closer, we'll pick that up. And then for people who kind of understand intensity, not too much, max 2 days. And that coincides with everything, right? And I'm just trying to fully build their aerobic threshold and get them a little closer to anaerobic from a mixed modality CrossFit perspective. And that rule of thumb for me, and granted it's always tweaked individually, has provided a lot of benefit with monitoring intensity of what Chad just said, just doing a little bit less. You know, and you have to be
descriptive. Did you get any pushback on that from members who are like, I see Rich doing this on Instagram, or I see this wherever? Do you get pushback from saying like, we got to kick it up a notch for me to be able to feel like I'm actually getting my bang for my buck?
No, they actually feel better. But what happens, like on those days that aren't intense, we're working on volume, we're working on resiliency, we're working on technique, we're working on high skill stuff in a controlled setting. We're putting them in a position to be able to do that stuff with intensity in a couple months. You know, they understand that. And that goes back to a lot of what we've been talking about is the role of the coach in creating buy-in with your athletes through communication and understanding who they are and having that good banter back and forth.
Yeah, that's to me, I always feel like it's no, I don't own an affiliate. I don't coach CrossFit on a regular basis. But one of the things that I notice when I go to my classes is, you know, a lot of people come in there just to beat the person next to them, and to be able to convince them that technique and positional work and working on specific areas of need are important. I think, Jay, you've clearly done a good job on being able to do that with your members, but I don't feel like that's always feasible to do for most coaches and owners. And so I'm kind of curious, like, was there something that was a breakthrough that you've been able to do, or was that kind of the foundation that you've always set in your gym and say, like, this is just how we do it here, and you'll recognize that you'll get stronger and you'll have longevity within your movement, and that'll be more of the end goal here rather than trying to beat the person next to you every workout?
You know, David, it first started with me truly understanding that more and applying it to myself more and seeing how I felt. And then from there, really educating my coaches on the whys of it. So they had the conversation with the people. You know, if members come in, like, listen, if this is your 5th day in a row, you shouldn't be going intense. Like, let's back off the intensity, let's get more reps, more volume in. But hey, this is your 2nd day and you're feeling great, then let's fucking rip into it. You have fun with it. And you're right. The hardest format to do it is in a gym setting because so many people come in a different setting, whether it's 2 days,
Right.
whether it's 3 days, whether it's 5 days. Like, so it comes lots of kind of like just chit chat with your members before they get started, before the workout gets started. But the easiest way is from an individual design perspective when you're working one-on-one, just to monitor that more.
Yeah.
I think the hard part there though is that, like you said, you had to train your coaches on how to answer those questions. And I don't think that many coaches are equipped when one of their members wants to do something and they want to do that something at a very high intensity. They don't know what to say. You know, what's interesting is I think back on how I was trained. I mean, in the endurance world, we do 10 to 30-second sprints one time a week at most. And that could be at the end of a workout, like stride outs. We'll do one workout that is high intensity intervals where the intensity is you're able to say 1 or 2 words. That's how intense it is. And then we'll do somewhere around 30 minutes of work, of tempo work, where you're saying 2 sentences. That's the level of intensity before gasping for air. And then essentially the remaining balance is full conversation intensity, easy pace. That's the bulk. And keep in mind, I was doing 20,000 meters in the pool. I was running 40 to 50 and I was riding 300 to 400 a week on the bike. The bulk of the time was easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And imagine knowing that and now looking in the CrossFit space. That's what's hard.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredibly difficult to get across to general population. They need to be able to see the results from that before they can actually buy in, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even back in 2015, you know, when I started working with Froning, he created a video and he said, you know what, in the first 12 weeks working together, my mile went from 6 minutes to 5:41, and I only ran 2 times a week. But what was interesting is he said my vertical leap went from 31 to 33 inches, and every one of my lifts went up. Which, how on earth does that not get attention? But people don't buy it. They just don't buy it. They think that for whatever reason that they heard that if you do this, it's going to interfere with that. And that's just not been the case. But you still have that propaganda machine out there. People like Chad.
That's right. That's right. Well, we all need a more complex answer, right? It has to be more difficult than simply doing less or making your workouts, most of your workout time, something that's more comfortable. Like it can't be that simple. And that's part of the problem. And another part of the problem too, we talk about coaches delivering this message. And I think coaches in general in the community are getting better, but when most of them are still doing the same thing that we're saying not to do, which is hammering themselves as an athlete over and over and over again every single day, how are they the one that's going to deliver that message?
Yep.
And just very quickly on the gymnastic side of things, and I would say that any skill development, we're so used to hearing constantly varied when it comes to CrossFit, but skill development is about repetition. It's not about being constantly varied. It's about doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I think that sometimes we lose that. We lose that understanding because we're so taught constantly varied. We're in this CrossFit mentality. But skill development is about repetition. Don't be shy about doing the same thing over and over again. That your session from last week looks like the session from this week because you're trying to nail home the way that movement pattern is supposed to be. So I think sometimes we get lost in this idea that we need to keep changing it. No, like hammer it home. Like thousands of reps a particular way is going to help you as well.
That's a great
100%.
point.
Amen.
Yep, that is a great point. Fact is that if you get that neuromuscular efficiency from doing repetition, it's going to make your speed, strength, and power better.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. One of the fun questions here, one of the ones towards the end. And I don't know how fun it is, but Chad, I want to go to you first. Well, for everyone, but I know the answer from you, so you might be able to kind of start us out. Do any of you think you'd ever want to write a book? about your training methodologies, and what would the title be? Chad, you don't have to do any spoilers here, but can you give us any insight into what you've been working on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's been now honestly for more years than I can remember. It's just a long process, and it's on weightlifting, of course, from start to finish. So as you'd guess, it starts with the squat and a lot of basic talk, and then leads into technique and everything else. Right now, I'm maybe somewhere in the middle and talking about actually finally got to technique from building from the start position of the snatch and clean and getting into that. But yeah, it's something that I very much enjoy. Not saying that it's easy at all. It's something that I have to make myself sit down and make myself start every single day. But it's something that I'm working on every day, and I'm very proud of and enjoying the process. And even though I want the book to be finished, I take a moment every day to remind myself how much I am kind of in the moment and enjoying the process. Name, I don't want to really give that up right now because it's not 100% confirmed, but I guess I can announce here that I told you this before Dave did officially sign a contract maybe 4 or 5 months ago. So it's kind of to the point to where there's no turning back. So
love it. I love it.
Love it. Congrats, that's great.
So instead of Chad giving the title, Jay, Chris, what would you name the title of Chad's book if you had the opportunity?
A path to
that's
mastery.
so easy.
Wait, I'm gonna write this down. What was that, Jay?
A path to mastery.
See.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Chris, you said that's so easy. What would it be?
Yeah.
No, he already said it. It starts with the squat. That's what it's called.
There it is.
Ooh, I love that.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I think Chad,
there you go. Chris with the mic drop.
I've got to start the whole book over.
Sorry, bro. You could have it for free. Chad, you could have that for free.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Hey, I might give you I'll give you 0.0001%. How about that?
No, you could.
Residuals. Here they come. All right. So next one. If you were all competing again, say you had a chance to go to the Olympics, and you got to pick another sport. You couldn't pick basketball, Jay. You can't pick weightlifting, Chad. And Chris, you can't pick running or swimming. What sport would you like to go to the Olympics and compete in that wasn't your primary sport?
Are we acting as if we're good enough?
Just the one that you would like to participate in.
Decathlon.
Decathlon, all right.
I don't think I'd be good at it, but if you're like, hey, you'd be good at it. Like I've always watched that in the Olympics, and they've been in all of those people. Just so many different things. I'm like, these guys are studs.
Yep, absolutely. Chris is thinking hard here. Chad, you got an answer?
Well, I can say what it wouldn't be. Hell no to gymnastics.
Yeah, well, that's clear.
Hell no to endurance. But I will go back to what we talked about in the beginning. Sprinter. I would like.
Yeah. All right.
There you go.
I thought he was gonna say 3-on-3 basketball.
Hey.
Can we understand why is that an Olympic sport?
Dude, that's a whole nother podcast. I'm so heated that that's a fucking Olympic sport. Like that is so dumb.
We already have basketball. We have to put 3-on-3 in there.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
So dumb. Yeah.
So Chris, 3-on-3 basketball. That's your pick.
That's it. Yeah.
Boy, that'd be great. No, I think that I mean, I would love to be a sprinter. I mean, just sit and think that genetically I was born to be good at a 9-hour event is so unfair. It's like, I mean, can you imagine doing a sport where you get tired after you finish? That's what I want to do. Right. That's what I want. Yeah. The best interviews in the world are when they're interviewing the 100-meter sprinters, right? When they finish, they're like full conversation. And then like 15 seconds, it's like, hold on, man.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Love it.
It's coming. Yeah. I mean, how nice would that be? Boy.
Well, I don't really have the experience of doing anything for 9 hours. So I think the sprint, the running things are definitely more in line with being a gymnast. And I probably would be more okay with it. I think long distance stuff is something that I just have no understanding of at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's interesting? Yeah. So, this is really fascinating for me. Sprinters, the reason why they like being sprinters is because when they train this high intensity, they don't think. They get to tune out the world. It's too hard and there's no thoughts. Endurance athletes like the opposite. They like to be grinding for a long amount of time because it's cathartic. They could sort out things in their head. They can do, their lists. And that's always something that's interesting to me, because that's why I don't like high intensity, is because all you're doing is exercising.
Yeah, to your point, Chris, for me, long distance, like if I try to run a mile, for example, I get fatigued so quickly, and I'm not sprinting, I'm running at a comfortable pace, but it's painful enough for me to where it's not, I can't think. I can't just take my thoughts somewhere else to where it passes the time. It's just however long it takes me to get through that mile or whatever I'm doing of suck. So that's why it's hard for me not to want to do a weightlifting workout or a sprint workout, because I get to explode and do it, and then I rest and during my rest period is the time that I get to do my thinking.
That's interesting. I mean, genetically, you're not going to ever be good at a mile, because you're just
Chris, why would you say that? No.
Well, no, because you're fast twitch dominant. I mean, you don't have enough slow twitch fibers, so you're not going to have that stamina. You're always, in a short amount of time, going to fatigue and fail all of your slow twitch fibers, and there's no capacity there. You're going to have to and be forced to recruit those fast, and next thing you know, death comes.
Chad, you know what your mile time is?
My best mile time was probably like 7:15, I think. So yeah, not great, but maybe not too bad for a weightlifter.
But I bet you have an amazing 200.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure I've even got the capacity to do 200. I have to pace a 200 right now.
Well,
so
true, but all right. How about a 150?
All right, this will be we're going to go to the track at Powerlifting Camp.
I would love to see it. Yep.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yep.
All right, last question, guys. Should be a quick one. If you had the opportunity to train with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be? Jay, you're first.
Oh, God.
Training with them, not meal, not having a glass of wine.
Ooh, I got it. Can I share a story with my answer?
Please do.
Thank you. Kobe Bryant. And I say that for this one reason. So there's a trainer who I used to know, and he got invited to go to this Nike camp. Now Nike, puts on training camps, all different sports, and Kobe was at a camp. And he goes there and he sees Kobe there, and he's like, listen, Kobe's been known for like these blackout workouts. Like his method of training, so intense, so hard, is like outlast anybody. So he goes up to Kobe and he goes, hey Kobe, I'm here, I'm visiting from such and such, like I'm a trainer, I just want to watch you train. I'm not going to say a word to you, I don't want to have any part in it, I just want to sit in the corner like a fly and just watch you train. So Kobe looks at him, he goes, okay, meet me at 4. And the guy's like, all right, cool. He starts walking away and he comes back. He goes, wait, Kobe, camp is 9 to 5. He goes, yeah, 4 a.m. So he goes, fuck it, I'm gonna show Kobe I can be there. So he goes, okay, cool, I'll be there. So he goes to bed in his hotel, wakes up like 3 a.m. He goes, I'm gonna get there before Kobe. I'm gonna show him that I'm just gonna here to watch him. He pulls up to the gym, his heart drops. The lights are on. He's like, what the fuck? It's 3:30 a.m. Parks the car, walks into the gym, he hears squeak, squeak, squeak. Kobe's in a puddle of sweat, drenched. He's like, are you kidding me? It's 3:30 a.m. He told me 4 a.m. He's already been there for like an hour. So he sits in the corner, just watches. And for 2 hours, Kobe's just doing the basics. Jab step, crossover shot, jab step, crossover dunk, nonstop, so hard, like he's playing in a full game. Gets done, Kobe's drenched in sweat. He walks up to Kobe Bryant, he goes, Kobe, I had a question for you. He goes, obviously that was amazing. I learned so much just watching. He goes, but you just did the basics, like repetitively, nonstop. You didn't do anything different. He goes, why'd you do that? He goes, you're the best in the world. You probably could do like a bunch of other stuff. Kobe pauses. He looks up at him. He goes, why do you think I'm the best in the world? Walks away. And I was like, ever since hearing that story, I was like, I would love just to train with him, just to see what he does, his intensity and just his effort into everything. So that's my answer.
Love it.
That's great.
I'm not gonna go into too much. I actually mentioned this story on podcast at some point. I had the opportunity to train next to Kobe at the Olympics, and I can confirm everything that you're saying. The whole basketball team, it was me and all of Team USA basketball in '08. We were training together in the 24-hour fitness in the USA training facility. And everybody, all the other guys, Dwayne Wade, Dwight Howard, Boozer, Jason Kidd, the whole team were all together training and having fun. Like they were just having a blast. Like they were just joking around and playing. And then Kobe and LeBron had their own trainers off to the side, and they were training like it was the end of the world. Like they were doing things that were insane. And it was so eye-opening that these were the best of the best in the world in their individual sport. And 90% of them were doing, whatever. And these two other guys that were clearly anomalies within their own expertise were on their own, just at a completely different level. Like it was so eye-opening to say, like, these guys are here for fun. These guys are trying to be different. They're not trying to be, they are different because of this. And I just always remember them just being like, oh my God, like these guys are on another level for a reason.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
I mean, I think if I was going to take a pick, so I was invited once to the mothership at Red Bull in Austria, and the interest for me was to collaborating with other coaches in other sports, that these extreme sports. And what appeals to me about athletes that come out of this extreme sport arena is it's not always physical. It's not really the physical side that's driving the performance in the sport. I mean, yeah, okay, you have to be somewhat fit, but it's more about courage and repetition and somehow controlling that fear, like Baumgarten jumping, from outer space. Mm-hmm. It's not, a fitness and he's got to do 10,000 hours before he's becoming competent. And that to me is very appealing. Athletes that have switched it where they may not genetically be born with a predisposition for endurance or speed, strength, and power. They're just a person that has a level of courage and opportunity. That is appealing to me. So the only reason why I was really interested in Red Bull was, wow, what an opportunity to get in that inner circle. And then, of course, when I got there, they burst my bubble and they're like, no. You're in a silo. We're not going to share anything with what other coaches are doing. We want to pick yours and take yours, and we're going to put it into our family of knowledge. And it was like, wow. So yeah, for me, that is a very appealing piece, especially how do you train an athlete where if one mistake, they're going to die. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, we have athletes that bomb because they go into a 17,000, seat arena, and the adrenaline rush, they finish last. Imagine if the risk is, not last place, but they're going to risk their life. Mm-hmm. That to me is something that has always interested me. And I've just never had an opportunity to sit on that table.
Love it.
Yeah.
Chad, what about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you first asked that question, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to think of anything. There's just had all these thoughts going through my mind, and then suddenly it hit me, and it kind of goes back to when I first got into CrossFit, or through that first year. I remember, maybe 3 or 4 athletes in my gym that were just really good at CrossFit, and I was so excited to be able to just be there and witness them, watch what they could physically do. And then I was invited to go to this again Faster Summit. That's where I actually met Jay for the first time, and I saw all of those athletes that were there were above and beyond, just at a completely different level, physically, mentally, emotionally, than these other handful of athletes that were at my gym that I was looking up to. And that was such an incredible experience for me. And it leads me to really, if I think about a person that I would like to train with, it would be Matt Frazier. And it's because, one, I'm just a big fan. Also, he's got that weightlifting background, right? But because, one, I did train with him one time. Cheryl and I got to hang out with him for a day and witness that a little bit. But I would just like to spend a full day, maybe even a couple days of just not only training with him, but watching him train and listening to him talk and see everything that he does. Because some of the things that I've heard him say, I know that he's so smart about his training. He's not just going in and killing himself all the time. He's very meticulous. He's very technical and everything else. And I would just like to be there and witness what he can do up close and personal in a training environment physically. And I know it would just be above and beyond those athletes that I saw at the Again Faster Summit, but also just to witness his genius on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, and just take that in.
Hell yeah. Well, I know Chris has been able to witness quite a few of those sessions over the years. So
every time when I work out with him, though, the thing that he tells me is, why are you here? Like, if I was your age, I would not be here on the track with me. It's always like one of those things where it's like, man, you should be on a boat with a big gray beard. That's where you should be fishing.
Gray beard.
That's what he always used to tell me. Why are you running laps with me?
Yeah.
Is that his words of wisdom for you there? Is that what I would take away? You don't need to be here.
That's what he was saying was, it's like, you should be retired. You should be with your feet up on the porch. And it's interesting now that he's retired, he's working harder than ever.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think somebody like that ever turns it down. He just kind of directs the energy to something else, Can
you imagine being me? You didn't, your specialty is a 9-hour event. You train 12 hours a day for 9 years. And now what are you going to do with your free time? Right. There's the trouble.
A lot of time that opens up for you. Yeah.
Right.
Well, guys, that's the end of this. This is the first time we've tried this roundtable, and I think it went pretty well. Got to catch up and chat on some things that I think the listeners will really get an appreciation for from a coaching side, but also just some personality in there. And hopefully we get to do it again. Appreciate it, guys. And hopefully we get to see you again in person sometime soon.
It's always good seeing you guys. Always good.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for coming on. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. As always, to our listeners, very much appreciate you guys listening in, and hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your hosts. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.